Hey everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the best magic Lohse build in Divinity Original Sin 2. This is going to be focused mostly on hydro and aero skills as there's a lot of synergy between them here. We can do everything in combat. We got mobility with our Aerotheurge skills. They're also very high damage, some of the best in the game. Our Hydrosophist skills are here to be able to heal, provide support, and give some magic armor back to our team. And these actually combine together to do some pretty crazy stuff when it comes to combat. And skills like Rain are very important. I'd actually recommend buying as many scrolls as you can because with a certain talent, you can use this to set up surfaces on the enemies, but also make it so that we have a lower cost for our spells. And when the target is wet, they end up taking more damage from our air-based skills, so that's what we'd like to use. Ideally, having source points means you can use Chain Lightning and Closed Circuit pretty well, but even going ahead with something like Electrical Discharge on high ground whenever the target's wet, you're going to do some pretty respectable amounts of damage there. And then with a shock surface like this, it brings the cost of our spells down, so then we can use things that are going to do quite a bit of damage. Pressure Spike here in particular can actually do some pretty crazy stuff. We're able to actually hit 2 targets at once here by dropping this, and you can get some crits off. So to go over her stats here, for attributes, I like to go obviously around intelligence. This is what we're going to be using for our spells. Once we hit 30, that gives us 100% extra damage here, which is a nice number to shoot for. We can also get this from gear. I only have a +2 for my gear. It's not amazing, but it works. Constitution, I have a negative from the Spider's Kiss there, but it's not a super important stat due to the way that it scales, especially in the later game. We do need a bit of memory though, and Wits is going to be the stat after our intelligence score because this is going to give us a increased crit chance and initiative, which is really nice. We typically want to go first as a crowd control kind of this elemental damage setup. Being able to set down rain and things like that is important, but I like to obviously have enough memory here so that we're able to prepare the spells that we want. And there's actually quite a few that are really good in both the hydro and the aero skills, so that's what we're rolling with for attributes. But for our abilities now, I like to have at least 1 point here in warfare. This lets us take a talent, the executioner. Since we do so much damage, this is 2 extra action points, and I think this is best used on this type of build. So 1 point of warfare, you do have to invest it. It can't be from your gear, unfortunately. And the rest of the points into Hydrosophist and Aerotheurge. Now, Aerotheurge is going to give us the most damage here, so this is the one that I'd recommend getting to level 10 as quick as possible. Hydrosophist is great too because it gives us more healing, but healing is not always the best thing to be doing in combat. But we're going to be putting all our points, not into anything else here. We get Aerotheurge up to 10, get your Hydrosophist up to 10 next, and a 1 point in warfare. And this takes us to our talents. There's a few really good ones. Now, Elemental Affinity is really nice. So this will lower the action point cost of spells when standing in a surface of the same element. You saw at the start of the video, laying down rain and then putting up lightning on the surface there will give you 1 less action point cost for our lightning Aerotheurge spells, which is really good. So you want this one. This is typically the best talent here. Now, as I mentioned, Executioner is very good on this build. Since we do so much damage, we're going to be proccing this one often. Far Out Man is decent if we want to increase the range of our spells. This can be good. There's another one that I'll get to in a moment, but increase the range of skills and scrolls by 2 meters, which is kind of nice, as we do have some that are, long range. You don't need to use this one, though. It can be a nice one. Hothead is another really good one. We're at maximum vitality, and since we got Hydra skills, we can actually heal ourselves back pretty easily. And on top of this, we can regenerate our magic armor too. We get a 10% extra crit rate. This is important because if we use the Savage Swordle Edge, which is, I would say, just as important as Elemental Affinity, this makes it so that all of our magic gets a critical chance equal to our crit score. So Hothead's 10% gets added to our spells. So just automatically for being at full health, we get a 1 in 10 chance of triggering a crit. And depending on what type of items you're able to find, you're going to maybe want to use two wands or a staff that's going to have a high crit rate, because this is just a way to really boost up your overall damage. Crits on some of our arrow skills can one-shot enemies. Now, Comeback Kit is okay. If you will go down, you can step back right back up. Big and Better is actually pretty decent early on. It gives you a couple extra attribute points, which we could put into our intelligence there for like a 10% increase to our damage. All Skilled Up is an okay choice as well. Even things like the Living Armor can be okay for the extra healing onto our magic armor. Mnemonic is actually decent in the early game because it's 3 memory points, which means you can prepare 3 more spells with a 1 talent cost. That's a good choice early on in the game. Pet Pal is nice too in certain instances. And actually, the one I wanted to recommend here is Stench. This is funny because it reduces everyone's attitude by 25, and it's weird to make Lohse stink, but yeah, this makes it so that enemies are going to attack us less, and if there's any character we don't want to get attacked, this is us. Torture doesn't really work as well as some of the other builds in this game, so it's more so for Pyro and Geo. But honestly, I think Far Out Man's kind of nice. This lets you stick back if you don't want to use the Stench there, just to prevent yourself from getting hit. And as far as skills go, there's a lot of really good ones here. Obviously, Hydra and Aero are 2 of the best types of damage in the game. Now, one that I want to mention again, very important, is rain. This sets up a water surface for us, which means that all of our damage is going to be getting 20% more. It's not as strong as in Baldur's Gate 3 with Create Water, but it's still extremely powerful. And this is great because, again, you can use the Elemental Affinity off of this to get cheaper spell costs for everything that we have here. Now, I guess starting with Hydrosophist skills, going with like the Ice Fan and the Hail Strike here. So this one will let you do pretty decent damage and increase an ice surface there, which can end up freezing targets. I also like the Ice Fan here, which does have a higher cost of 3, but you can target 3 targets, and you can shoot an Ice Shard, which will do a decent bit of water damage and chill. And whenever a target is chilled, they get reduced movement speed. They have a 30% less rate of dodging, so they're getting hit by everything. They have a bit more fire resistance with 10% more fire resistance, but they get 20% more water or hydro skill damage, so our future attacks will deal more damage, and arrow damage gets increased, or air damage gets increased by 10%. I also really like the global cooling skill here, with this actually a good one, because whenever you set chilling enemies around you, again, you're dealing more damage to them, and it's only a 1 action point cost. This will also freeze all suspectable surfaces. This is a really good skill, and it's actually a very low cost for what it does. Soothing Cold is also kind of nice for a 1 action point cost, which will regenerate magic armor for 3 turns, so you get 75 roughly at this level per turn, which is kind of nice. Not always necessary, but it's a good one for the cost. Now, we also got things like Healing Ritual, which is, these healing spells suck late in the game, but in Act 2, they're at a decent bit. Being able to chain heal your team is nice. In a pinch, it has 1 action point cost. And then we also have Restoration, which will heal for 2 turns and has a 1 action point cost. So typically, you'd want to use Restoration a bit more. We also have things like the Winter Blast spell here, which will chill enemies and freeze blood as well, which is kind of cool. It does a lot of damage on a single target. I also want to mention the Source skill Hailstorm, which once you get the 3 action or source points in Act 2, is extremely powerful. 20 Eric shards that do about 30 damage each drop down on the ground. Crazy damage. I also like Bloodstorm, but this is more so a physical damage build, which doesn't work with this. And Thunderstorm is also quite nice, dealing quite a bit of air damage. Now for our arrow skills, we have a lot of really good ones. So Vacuum Touch can do air and air damage, and will suffocate and silence the target. If there's a mage nearby, we can pop this on them. It's kind of crazy. It actually combos well if you're going to use something like the Nether Swap, which you can make 2 characters switch places. This is good if there's a target on high ground and you want to bring like a spellcaster at high ground. You want to put one of your spellcasters in their place, so you can Nether Swap and then Vacuum Touch and silence them. It's a kind of good combination. We also have Uncanny Evasion here, which will set our dodging to 90%. This just means you're going to be much more likely to survive. So this is a good skill in a pinch to pop if you want to be more proactive than reactive. Now for the more high damage options, Pressure Spike's actually pretty crazy with a short cooldown. Condense all clouds in this area. You don't really need the clouds in the area. It's just going to do a pretty good amount of damage. It also will douse your fires that are in that area. Now, the big damage dealers, Electric Discharge is a pretty good amount of damage. You saw it can set up the Shock Surface as well, so you get a cheaper cost for all these other spells. But it's Closed Circuit and Chain Lightning that are the big dealers here. Closed Circuit has a 2 source point cost, whereas Chain Lightning is going to be the one you're likely will cast around Act 2 a bit more. Shoot a bolt of lightning that forks up to 8 times in an 8-meter radius and deals nearly 300 damage to each target, and it'll shock for 2 turns. Whenever an enemy is shocked, they take 15% more arrow damage. They have more earth resistance by 15%. It's fine, we're not doing that. They have a minus 30 to their dodging, and they get 1 less action point, so they're likely going to be doing less attacks. Closed Circuit, though, is the big one here, dealing almost 500 damage to all enemies around you. It has a large area. It creates Curse Static Clouds on the edge of the spell, too, so it also shocks enemies and sets air immunity for 1 turn. This is a pretty powerful combat option. Chain Lightning is good as well. I also want to quickly mention, if you have a team that's heavily focused on magic armor, Arcane Sitch can restore your entire team's magic armor really quickly. Steam Lance can create Blessed Steam, which is kind of nice. And I also personally enjoy using a few other spells like the Vampiric Hunger here. You can put this on a target, they get 50% lifesteal for 2 turns. If you have a target with stripped armor, you can sometimes just heal back your team with 1 action point cost. There's also the higher version of this, the Vampiric Aura, which you can use 1 source point and 1 action. It'll put 50% lifesteal on your entire team, which is crazy. Another skill that I like, I'm actually going to open up a spot for it, is Teleportation. What Teleportation does is it lets you teleport a character and item to a point you're choosing. This is a really good skill in and out of combat. It can lead to some really funny moments. If there's like towers nearby, you can put targets up at the top of towers, and if they can't climb ladders, they're stuck. So this is a pretty rounded with healing, damage, and options for crowd control and movement. Now, gear is a tough one. I honestly would recommend looking for anything that's going to give you a crit chance. So this staff here has 14% crit chance. We have a 37% crit chance here. What's great about this is that I have no points in our wits just from gear. And yeah, that's quite high. We can get this even higher later on as we scale it up. You want to be looking for intelligence, obviously, on all your gear, but I only have a +2 coming from the staff, which is not amazing, but The other points in staff and finesse and warfare don't really matter. I was just looking for the +2 to Aerotheurge. You really want to get your Aerotheurge up as high as possible here, because that's going to give you the most damage. I have mine at 14 with 10 Hydrosophist and 2 Necromancer for a bit of sustain, and then the warfare skill there, so you can use Executioner. But yeah, for most of your gear, you're going to want to look for Aerotheurge, with Hydrosophist being the other option. +2 to Aerotheurge obviously being ideal. But you can also throw on 2 wands, or a wand and a shield. If you're able to find a good shield, I have this one here. It does require 13 Constitution. It's a higher level shield. So yeah, use what you can find. And when it comes to combat, we have some very high damage options. We also got the ability to chill an enemy, and after they're chilled, if we drop rain on them, it's going to freeze them, which takes out their turn. So we have lots of great options for not just damage, but crowd control. We also have the nether swap here, which lets you get to some high ground if you need it. And my recommendation is to usually start off with one of your heavy hitters, like Chain Lightning. Close Circuit's quite nice, because you can actually hit this in a very large area of effect, but I'm going to go off with the Chain Lightning here. It's going to hit a large amount of enemies here, and it's just going to chain around like you can see there. Unfortunately, hit one extra target there. Didn't chain to this target. I guess that was blocking it, but we have our Ice Fan and Hail Strike here, both 3 action point costs. That can actually set up the chilled on targets, which is really nice. So we can go ahead with dropping those down, and it's going to end up chilling them, and the rain, if it ends up hitting again, is going to freeze them. And we were able to get a stun off, so they lost their turn. And I unfortunately had my own magic turn against me. I was actually really lucky that in this particular positioning, Close Circuit's able to hit 4 targets with this. So this is our other source skill that actually is extremely powerful, as you can see there. And we set up this air immunity in this area. This also gives us stun and shock immunity, but you can see here we stunned everyone else in this area. And the crazy thing is, whenever a target is stunned, they're just losing their turn next turn. It also drops down Curse Steam, which will cause enemies to decay, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, you can use your Nether Swap here to be able to position targets as you see fit. We have things like Hail Strike, which have a pattern that you can see there is a little bit tricky. Winter Blast is a large circle, so you got to use whatever is not going to hurt your teammates sometimes, especially whenever you have rain going down on the enemies. We were able to freeze this target here and chill this one perfect. And with Executioner, we're going to drop down another ice attack here, getting another crit and another Executioner. Nice. Electric Discharge is a really nice spell too, because with this, we're sometimes able to set up like a surface that we can get this shock off there, making some of our other spells a little bit cheaper. Now we also have ones that have a 1 point cost, like Pressure Surge there, so it's going to be mindful of that they aren't going to get any cheaper, but they still are a really nice option at low damage, or if you have low action points here. But we also have some healing spells, which are nice. And sometimes your teammates do need that, but I'm just going to drop another Ice Fan here, and just going to Friendly Fire, why not? So there's a magical build for Lohse in Divinity Original Sin 2. If this video is useful, please hit the subscribe button below. Stay tuned for more Divinity Original Sin 2 content coming your way. And yeah, I hope you guys all have a great day.